And up and away, we'll get the inside track on the booming market for drones. Everything from farming to filming. They're increasingly popular in the commercial world, but at what cost and how should they be regulated? And so for fear of droning on, what do you think? Are drones great fun or a dangerous device that can undermine your privacy? Let us know. You know what to do. Use the hashtag BBC Business Live.
Still to come, we'll be getting the inside track on the booming business of aerial filming.
Yeah, capturing incredible shots like these has led to a boom in drones, but are they safe and just how should they be regulated?
You're with Business Live from BBC News.
Hello, you're watching Business Live. Our top story today, President Obama is on his way to Saudi Arabia, where trade relations, of course, have been tested thanks to that lower oil price and the Iranian nuclear deal. We'll keep you right across that story, any developments from talks between those two world powers.
Now it's time to drone on. We're talking about the devices. You may love them, you may hate them. They've been around for a few years now, and they're fast becoming a part of our daily lives.
Yeah, whilst the sale of recreational drones has exploded in recent years, it's commercial drone sales that are transforming the way that many businesses operate.
Commercial drone sales reached $261 million last year, but are expected to almost double that to $481 million this year.
More and more areas of business are taking advantage of this UAV technology, with agriculture now expected to account for 48% of all commercial drone sales this year. We'll explain that for you in just a minute. But the filming opportunities that drones can offer have allowed a new breed of firms to flourish.
Airstoc is one of them. It has 5,000 operators in over 100 countries and sells drone-shot aerial footage for everything from TV shows to construction projects to everything in between that.
Well, Giles Moore is the Chief Executive of Airstoc. He's with us in the studio this morning.
Welcome,
nice
Giles.
to see you. Welcome. And you brought a couple of your devices with you, and these are the sort of things people are getting increasingly familiar with what they are and how they work.
Yes.
Just talk us through some of the more unusual practical applications. We talked about films and things, but they're agriculture. How do you use a drone in agriculture?
Well, it's used for a lot of different ways. A lot of it can be because of the detail it can produce now. So it might be looking at like water content in various parts of the wheat field. Maybe it could be looking at livestock control, crop surveying, things like that. So it's the detail that it can provide now is vast, which is why people are starting to use it for, as you rightly said, agriculture, farming, for construction industry as well, and the time saving that's brought about from this technology.
Do they round up sheep? Did someone tell me
so,
that?
Well, you can actually see some of that on YouTube. Yeah, someone actually, but actually it's more to show.
What about the good old sheepdog?
They're still around. Yeah, they still use. I think some of the actual one of the most interesting ones that I've heard of is someone trying to combat mass world deforestation with mass forestation and trying to look to plant 1 billion trees with drones over the next in a couple of years.
And that's the thing, I mean, the power of these things. I mean, we've got one here on the desk, and this is what you might call an entry-level model, something that most people may be getting more familiar with, and still costing, what, about £1,500?
Around about £1,000 and upwards.
But you've also brought in a much more industrial one, and that's there, sat in the corner, ominously staring at us. Just talk us through what you would use something like that for.
That's the more kind of commercial grade drone, which will be used for kind of the multimedia side of things, which is for footage that's going to be shown on TV and in the cinema screens, really.
Okay.
But also that will be used probably for the more construction if you're looking at thermal imaging and GIS.
If we just bring in some of our viewers' comments on this, Giles, because we put out a Twitter question earlier saying, you know, do you think they're great? Do you think they're dangerous? One viewer getting in touch saying in the wrong hands they could be very dangerous. We're very concerned. There needs to be a code of conduct. And of course we've had that story, was it this week or last week, about a drone hitting an aeroplane which was coming into land at Heathrow Airport. It really is on the minds of everybody, isn't it? The potential they have for good and bad. Yeah,
and I think the rules are in place and have been in place for a long time. They don't need to be changed. I think what needs to happen is they need to be enforced, and that's really important. But things like what's happened with Heathrow and other incidents around there is it should be a chance to really accelerate the awareness and education of drones. And you've got the professionals, the hobbyists who love these machines. It's their passion, it's their livelihood. But you've got the consumers who it's all about. They get it out, and the first thing they want to do is fly as far away, as high as they can, as fast as they can. And that's when the dangers can happen.
Because there are quite specific rules, aren't there, and
Absolutely,
regulations?
yes, there are.
about using them, whoever you are, whether you're a 10-year-old boy or a professional like yourself?
Absolutely, yeah, and it's that kind of part of the market that I think needs to be targeted towards what the rules are. Because they're in place, and yes, you can enforce them. People need to be made more aware of actually what they're about. You can put new things in place in terms of technology with geofencing, with making it compulsory to register the drones for accountability purposes. But ultimately, it comes down to common sense. You know, if you're next to a Heathrow, the last thing you want to do is fly that 2,000 feet in the air, and that's a big part of it.
And it's an industry, isn't it, that is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, we've talked about Amazon potentially trying to work out how it can deliver parcels using drones. We know the airspace is going to get more and more crowded, and it will ultimately have to come down to regulation when about this 3D space in which we're now operating. It's not 2D, we're not all on the ground, so how do you regulate something up there about who has commercial right-of-way, who has recreational right-of-way? And then not least things like helicopters and planes that are also up there too. I mean, how do you regulate something like that? Yeah,
I think, ultimately it is difficult. It takes a lot of time to get in place. I think a lot of it is the same way I think cars, when they first came about, there was all this there was a lot of mess at the start with that. There is with the drones that come into play and people having this fear. Things like delivery, that will happen at some point, no doubt about it, but when, it's a lot more in advance of what you can do with it and how you can get there. But I think a lot of it is the aviation's kind of working together, working with the manufacturers to try and create that technology that can prevent issues happening. People are aware of them now, we can put things in place to prevent that happening. And as long as the stories that come out, it's great for awareness, really, for people.
Giles, it's been great to have you on the programme. Giles Moore from Airstoc. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much. Thanks for bringing these in with
and
you.
Thanks for all your comments. Plenty more. I hope we've answered some of your questions with that interview.